Okay, welcome back, everybody. We got a couple minutes after 7. We'll get going. I'll call the April 9th, 2025 meeting of the Kingsville Area School Board to order, and we'll begin with roll call, please, Marla.
Janet Mathis. Here. Earl Wallace.
Here.
Isaac Wallace.
Here.
Rich James.
Yes.
Peggy McCormick. Here. Bo Schrader.
Here.
Scott Walter.
Here. Next up, affirmation of approved publication of the agenda.
I, Aaron Midham, hereby certify that notice of the April 9th, 2025 regular school board meeting was caused to be published in the Epitaph News on April 3rd, 25, and posted on billboards in the following places on April 3rd, 2025 and April 8th, 2025. K-12 school building, Citizens First Bank Viola, Viola Post Office, and the school website. Notice paper was personally emailed, taken fax to the Epitaph News by Marla Randall.
Thank you, Aaron. And then if everybody's had a chance to look through the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Bo. Marla to approve. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Audience, visitors, and board members, and we do have a visitor who'd like to speak. You said, Marla?
Kathy. That's okay.
Oh, a regular visitor.
I am a regular. I would like to say this is my year anniversary. I started coming last April. And my husband always has a rule that if I do something, I have to do it for a whole year. So this is my year anniversary, and I'm going to not keep coming, because my goal was to find out more about the budget, which everybody's done a very good job explaining, so I appreciate that. I have a better understanding of that, and I try to explain that to people that I see. And also, one of my other goals that I didn't really know was a goal until I started coming is to find ways that I can help the school. So just so everybody knows, I have a degree in marine biology, so I have a Bachelor of Science, and I have a master's in education. Who knew? Anyway, and I also work at the Viola Public Library. So if there's anything you guys can do, I had a great time at Books for Breakfast. The children are so cute. Oh my gosh, they're so polite and they're so pleasant. So yeah, so I hope to be around. So I hope to see all you guys, maybe not here, but perhaps on the campus. But again, if there's something I can do, I have a lot of free time. I only work 15 hours a week. So give me a call and I'll come see if I can help. Thank you.
Very good, and thanks for coming last year. Any board members have issues they'd like to? I guess just since it's fresh in mind, one thing I mentioned is the effort Marla puts in to get not only our board agendas and packets ready, but the policy committee has been, I think, a workload for her. The stuff we went through tonight was voluminous, and it's, for us, for me as a committee member, it's easy to get through because it's so well organized and easy to wade through, so much appreciated.
You did okay.
Anybody else have anything? I guess one other thing that pops to mind that I don't know if this is gonna call for action or anything or further discussion, but we're all aware of what's happening with at the federal level with education. And I keep trying to predict how that's gonna tumble down to public schools here in Wisconsin, and I can't draw direct lines. You know, if this program disappears, what it will mean for us. If this source of money disappears, what it will mean for us. And I'm sure there are much brighter and more engaged people than myself thinking about those things, but I don't know if it's even possible to make those predictions or try to be preemptive in terms of what might be coming our way, but I worry about it. Maybe that's all I'm gonna mention.
I'll add to that. I don't know if anybody else happened to see it, but Milwaukee Journal Sentinel yesterday had 9 schools in Wisconsin that are gonna lose the highest percentage of their budget or could potentially due to the federal cuts. Guess what? The third one, Lafarge. Also in the top 9, Brookwood, or Norwalk, Ontario, Wilton, Hillsborough, and Cashton.
I think we're like we're just missed that list.
I know, and I was
Am
trying to
happy?
find the longer list, and then it kind of cut me off, and it's one of those articles, it subscribes, so you don't.
Could you email it? Do you have an email version of that article? 'Cause
I don't, but I can look for one, and I think there was a
Alright,
similar one in the State Journal today, so.
Problem with those, you always have to subscribe. And
Yeah, I know, that's
Subscribe.
right, so, and I thought I was getting it, but the only thing I got was their little chart.
Any idea in that article, what determines that? Like, why is Lafarge losing so much? What?
It's the amount of money that is sent from the federal government based on your poverty level and your special ed.
Yeah.
Is my understanding
Because
from what I
theirs
read.
is like 800,000, over 800,000, and the other three I named are all over 1 million, so.
I think ours is 12 per,
Over 13%.
12 or 13 is what I thought it was.
What is ours is 12 or 13? Yeah.
Yeah. Percent of our,
Lafarge's is 23.
yeah.
So I,
But I just thought it was interesting that 4 of the 9 are right down here.
so since you spoke up, Allison, what level of worry do you have about?
Right now, I'm not letting myself worry because nothing is set in stone and once we get a little more information and everything is still up in the air right now that I can't let myself get too worked up yet. Started thinking about it, but I can't panic. I'm not allowing myself to.
Rich, just thinking about this is maybe something the Policy and Legislative Affairs Committee might, I always like to plan ahead, right? Be proactive instead of reactive. Do you think it'd be worth having a committee discussion and trying to pull some facts together about that? If we
Yeah, no,
could, I
no,
don't-
no, absolutely. In fact, yeah, Chris had sent me some stuff on not exactly what Janet was saying, but numerous other things to talk to. So yeah, so how about we'll look for a date to have another meeting where then we can talk that and then finish those 10 policies, because Allison would be a key participant in both of them.
Okay,
And I'm sure Chris is well aware of some of this too, but several of the articles are on the disproportionate impact on rural
Yep.
districts and low economic. So, I mean, I think what you're saying is especially appropriate.
Well, and she went to a listening session, was it Sunday in Westby, that I think, somebody, Lady Johnson and Senator Pfaff were there, and, that's what she asked. She's like, what are you guys doing? I mean, look what is happening to, public education, and especially rural education, and what can we do? What are you doing? And I haven't been able to talk to her in detail with all the stuff I have going on this week, but yeah, it may be sense to have another meeting, Scott. So I'll send some out when it works for you and Peggy and everybody, and we'll go from there.
well, maybe even before the next board meeting, since we're gonna meet to discuss those last policies.
Yep, yeah, definitely. I was thinking in the next couple of weeks at the latest.
Okay,
Jamie Nutter's advice at the last CISA board when asked about this too was basically what Allison's saying, don't panic yet. And he named like IDEA, and I can't remember what the other funding was that was approved, before all of this, and our legislative actions, and then some of the aids that have been around since the 60s, even though the Department of Education wasn't created until toward the end of the 70s, that it pre-existed the Department of Education, and you can't just think everything's gonna be gone. So
it's just,
we'll see.
That's exactly it. We'll see what happens.
it's just hard for me anyway to operate in a black hole, right? I just kind of sit and wait for
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff to happen. Anybody else have anything? All right, we'll move on to tonight's wonderfully prepared set of expense vouchers and receipts. One thing that jumped out, a $2,000 Wilderness Hotel in Wisconsin Dells.
That is for the senior spring trip.
Okay,
That is, they fund that, or they fundraise for that, and there's that stuff.
Yep, it's all out of their class activity fund account, none out of our general fund. What about there's three for Chippewa Valley Sports.
Kent Peterson's, yeah.
So those are all supplies for the spring sports, whether it be softball, baseball, yeah,
Right.
all that good supplies for them.
My only other question, I didn't know we helped support the spring election.
So we have to pay a fee to use, the electronic voting
Voting
machines.
machines.
So I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
Township pays dearly on them too.
Yeah,
yeah, it's a super fun expense to get every year, but you gotta have it.
Well, I guess I had one other on the cash receipts. Our per pupil aid, is that just a portion? Is that a quarterly payment?
So-
302,000.
That should just be a one-time payment throughout the year. It's
That's
just a
the year.
separate category of an additional funding source.
Shouldn't it be more than that?
So this isn't our equalization aid. It's just a separate bucket of the per pupil category A, categorical aid is just.
Okay, so it's
separate.
It's a portion of the state. It's
Yep.
cool, okay.
Yeah, our next equalization aid payment should come in June, and that one should be a larger lump sum payment.
Okay. No other questions or comments? Anybody wanna make a motion to approve expense vouchers and receipts?
I'll make a motion to approve the expense vouchers received.
I'll second it.
Motion by Isaac, second by Peggy to approve. All in favor?
Yeah,
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We got a nice lengthy consent agenda tonight. Minutes from our last regular board meeting. Minutes from last month's building and grounds committee meeting. Minutes from the April 3rd canvassing of ballots. The report from the Wisconsin School Violence Drill. The Better Futures Co-op Agreement for the coming school year. 25-26 course revisions and additions. The Sea Perch National Trip, which we've all heard about. A retirement letter, happy for her, but sad for everybody else here, from Tracy Solverson. Biology, plant, sale fundraiser, and one donation of $1,000 anonymous for the wrestling program, so. Any modifications or?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Motion by Isaac, second by Earl to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
yes.
Aye. Opposed? Motion does pass, and then fairly brief action agenda for tonight, folks, and we'll begin with the annual payment to the village of Reedstown for the use of the ball diamond.
I'll make a motion that we approve the annual payment to them.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Bo to approve. Any discussion or questions? Will we call the vote? All in favor?
Yes,
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And then the last thing on the action agenda, the CISA 3 contract for the coming school year, and that is in your packet.
Let's go.
the only, in the school improvement part, the only increase was on the,
Yeah, we can do that later.
oh, gifted and talented, but that wasn't much. Library 21, $6,700, is that something to be?
That was the
use it
one,
enough to make it worth it?
that was the one, if you remember right, that was the new edition that we had
Oh,
with that
okay.
veteran classes and,
All right.
yes,
Yeah.
yep,
Good, so it's been,
yes, yep, definitely an asset for
Good.
things.
So what is the little note? I know the CISA 3 services have been invaluable in terms of staffing, but it says that the rate next year will include a 3% staffing increase. What does that translate into in terms of hours?
So I read that more as they're gonna get a 3% salary increase, which is right about.
Oh, increase in salary, okay,
Yeah,
staffing increase, I thought, we got another 7.5 hours or something
I
like
think they're
that.
just trying to explain maybe why our charge for the speech and language
Went up some.
went up to $4,000.
Yeah, that adds up. And could you sort of enumerate what we get for that in terms of staff?
for the speech and language.
Yeah.
We have one full-time,
Allison.
Allison Pierce, she's here,
Monday to Thursday.
yes, and
Full-time.
then, yeah, works from home doing paperwork, I think, on Fridays,
Friday.
That's a lot.
yeah.
She's
and-
awesome.
That's our full cost for it, so it may sound like a lot for one full-time person, but remember, that's her insurance and her benefits and everything, so. And it's, CISA does it on a total, CISA really doesn't make money on it, they provide it. It's their employee.
Yeah.
And we pay the cost, and that's it, it's not a markup,
What are
it's a
the,
service.
so occupational physical therapy, vision, is that like kids that have,
There's a preschooler that has significant vision stuff, and they're, it's actually pretty cool. They brought in,
a braille?
it's a screen, yeah, that just, but it's really hard in preschool because they don't sit still long enough
Right.
to really set it up. And they're like, you're not doing a good enough job. I'm like, but
Yeah.
as he gets
Yeah.
older, they're gonna get more,
We
he'll
have
have more.
Yeah, in Richland Center, we have a sixth grader that
Uses
she
one of
comes
them.
in and they're teaching him braille because
Well, this isn't,
before he graduates, he will probably be totally blind.
yeah, this isn't braille. This is,
Okay.
it's a magnifying screen that takes,
Oh.
and even like group stuff. It's amazing watching him because like at lunch and stuff, he just be bopping around, not in anybody, just going wherever he is. But yeah, to read stuff off the board is pretty tough for him right now.
So I mean, everything I've heard, this is working great. But this person that Andy said is wonderful to work with and doing such good things. You know, is essentially a contract person, she's not wedded to Kickapoo, right? I mean,
Right.
she could be at Hillsborough next year.
Yeah, we stole it from Lafarge last year.
So that's what I'm,
As long as she
Sure.
wants to come back here.
Yeah,
And
she
they
lives
don't
in Viroqua. She really likes being here.
And they
Allison's
tend
not-
to not move them around if
Yeah,
they can. The only reason that you might get moved, like she's from Viroqua,
Yeah.
if she wants to be here, I can pretty well assure you Jamie Nutter will keep her here.
Yeah.
What happens is if we have somebody driving, we see this and some on that board too. If we have somebody driving from, say, down the other side of Platteville up to Richland Center, let's say, and there's an opening down there next year.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
that's,
Jamie feels he almost has to share that a little bit because,
Yeah.
you know,
the person we had before Allison was, I think, lived in Barneveld.
Yeah.
She was driving up here and she's like, I'm not coming back.
so remind me, I know we talked about this a couple of years ago and we were scrambling for a speech.
yeah.
Yes.
Pathologist, but if she likes it here and we're contracting, you know, probably what we pay a staff member anyway, why don't we?
She would ask for a lot more on the open market because CISA covers the difference. It would cost us, you couldn't put her on a teacher salary. She would want
That's a
$80,000 or
problem.
$90,000.
On the teacher.
So we Kickapoo couldn't afford to pay her what CISA does. Cause we're paying that, but CISA's covering the other part of whatever the makeup is my understanding.
Yeah, I think CISA has to pretty well break even though, but it's, I don't know that I'm not sure who's covering the mileage and all that, and that would be, like, this
It's
year
not-
wouldn't be a big deal, but it would have been the other year, so.
If there's any mileage, they just included it into the overall
Yeah.
contract, cause I,
We pay nothing more than
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I know,
And she's
and I
here,
get your
what, 4
point.
days a week, did you say?
Yeah, she's a Monday through Thursday.
but it's a full-time because what they,
Yeah.
Paperwork on Friday.
All right, just a thought I had.
Yep, no, we couldn't. Can't afford her.
Well,
That,
yeah.
the going rate
That's,
for,
that's the reason
Yeah.
that CISA has, I don't remember exactly how many of these right now, but serves a lot of the districts. In fact, not all just in CISA 3, he's been able to place a few in other CISAs. Because he's kind of got a pipeline into the ones coming out of the UW. Madison.
well, and then for a while there, the only place a speech person could get what they needed was through, it was like Stout or White, there was one school.
Stevens Point.
Or Point.
Yeah.
Everybody had to go through there, so then there weren't enough. But anyway, yeah,
And there's still not.
Still not enough.
still not enough.
Yeah, schools just basically can't afford it, and he hit it right on the
Where does
point.
CISA's money come from to make up?
Well, basically from us, because we're pretty much covering the
But,
cost of
but
it.
the remainder,
Well, most programs just pay for themselves. We're not there to make a profit, but, they do run a lot of workshops and that sort of thing, and those tend to, if they get good workshops in, they do come out ahead on those.
yeah. I just,
And some of the funds they deal with are what we call pass-through, which means basically CISA gets it and goes back up to the schools. So, a
okay,
lot of grants and things. Good questions.
other comments on the CISA contract? If none, I'll entertain it's not even 7:30, but slow down.
I'll make a motion to approve the CISA 3 contract for 25-26. I'll second it.
Motion by Isaac, second by Earl to approve the 25-26 CISA contract. All in favor?
Yes,
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on then to our informational agenda, a number of discussion items. Allison, kicking us off with the budget report.
Alrighty, so this budget report goes through March 31st, so we would be 3/4 through the year. Does anyone have any questions to start with? If not, I'll start rolling through and hopefully answer some. Alrighty. I'll start
Yeah,
rolling. You have a
well, no,
question?
I'll wait till you get to, or what do you want? You want me to ask now or?
It's up to you. I know that there's one spot that I would assume all of you are gonna have a question on because it looks bad. But I have an explanation for it.
Why don't you start with that explanation?
Alright, so right away at the top, we have our overall expenses and revenues for both Fund 10 and 27. Fund 10 right now is looking okay. Our expenses and revenues are right about even. It's still at 50%, which is less than where we typically are when you compare it to being 75% through the year, but we do get a lot of our revenues at the end of the year. We also have a lot of expenses at the end of the year, like our teacher pays are accelerated, so they get all of their summer paychecks in June, so that's a big portion of those expenses. Fund 27 is where I would assume most of you would be concerned, because right now our revenue is only showing that we're 16%. Scary number, but it's right around where we should be, and I know comparing it to last year, it's $200,000 less. But last year, a mid-year transfer from Fund 10 to 27 was made for $200,000. And that isn't a typical practice, because I look back and the last time that had been done was 2010. Typically, that's just made in June just to cover whatever your deficit is in Fund 27, because that has to be zero at the end of the year. But right now, that's about normal, and actually a majority of our Fund 27 revenue comes from that Fund 10 to 27 transfer at the end of the year. So big deficit, but yeah.
So I got a question for you then. I did go back and find the budget that was approved at the annual meeting, and your numbers, of course, they matched and everything. So where does this revenue from Fund 27 come from? Because all of the tax revenue is all in Fund 10.
Mhm.
So what is this money? What is
So,
this?
it's our special education reimbursement at the state and federal level. It's also from some of our grants. One of those being our IDEA grants, and I did just make a claim, so we should be getting about another just over $100,000 in Fund 27 revenue in April. I just checked our DPI AIDS register, and it should be deposited into our bank account about mid-April. So I know we're getting more in, but It just looks really bad because the majority of it just comes from that end of year transfer. But the money that we do have is from the federal reimbursement and our Medicaid reimbursement.
So how much did we budget to come in from Fund 10 then?
$807,000,
Wow.
which is up from last year, because
And
last
last year, what did we do?
last year, our actual transfer was $634,419.50.
Okay.
But we did have some increased needs this year, so that and the overall pot of money for our spec ed reimbursement at the federal level didn't increase enough to match the increase in needs. So we're supposed to get like a 33% reimbursement. Right now, they're estimating it's actually gonna be around 28 or 29%. Just because of how they fund it is wonky. And I know that's something that they're hoping to change, but at my last business manager CISA meeting, Jamie Nutter was there and he was like, you know, they're pushing for a 40% reimbursement next year. I wouldn't necessarily hold your breath on that just because they pushed for this in the past and then fell short when it came time for the budget to be passed. So right now, there's just a lot of things in limbo, so I've started to kind of pluck away at the budget for next year and put in some estimations, and right now, I'm keeping that reimbursement rate at around 28 to 30% for next year, just because I don't wanna overcompensate and then be very disappointed when we actually get the money in. So, is that the question you had, or was there another one?
There's another one further down, just when I get these, quarterly type, I always look at that percent
Mhm.
expended, and you get down to the insurance expense, where is this an indication that we're close to 90% that the wonderful savings we saw last year, we're gonna lose maybe?
So this isn't health insurance, this is all property and liability insurance.
Oh.
And all of that is paid at the beginning of the year. So I expect it to be that. I
Yeah.
do over budget just a little bit because we're gonna have a premium when we get the new bus and now when we get the new SUV. And at the time of when the budget is passed, I don't know what that'll exactly be. So I hear my known numbers plus a little extra for whatever that new premium would be. So yes, that one is good. It's the property and liability, not the health insurance.
There
'Cause
you go.
if it was health insurance, I'd be a little concerned too. But
Yeah, the Fund 27 thing is probably about the scariest thing I've seen on one of these reports in many years, so.
Yeah.
It is, and I think one of the points Allison made, especially if you're newer board members, you need to keep in mind is Fund 27, like she said, it has to come out even. Which means right now, if the things ended the way they are now, we'd have to find $600,000 in Fund 10 to move to Fund 27. Because they're $600,000 short. That would be a time and a half of $400,000 that we got in that referendum from last year. That's how scary this special ed number is.
yeah,
And unless they do go to 40% or more, this is gonna be a recurring problem, because we talk all the time about how those costs are increasing, the number of students with special needs. Which, when we talk about the value of interventionists and the things we need to do to address those needs, here's where it hits us.
yeah. And we aren't the only school going through this. At one of my Baird workshops, just looking strictly at the budget, one of the ladies from Baird said that she had met with the school to try and figure out how big of an ask they needed to go for their referendum. And they were just playing with different numbers, just to see different scenarios, and they said that even if their spec ed reimbursement would have jumped from the 33 to a guaranteed 40%, they wouldn't have to go to referendum. So it's not just an us problem, it's a statewide issue that a lot of people are dealing with, and that increased spec ed funding would make a big difference in a lot of schools. Yeah, so not a fun thing to look at, but we're not alone. Doesn't make it okay, but we're not alone.
And you have money coming in.
Yeah,
There's money.
Right, well, and even the 100,000 of the grant that she's already, put the, whatever you call the request in for. If you figure that's about it, gives you about a time and a half as much. Now you're up from 16% to 24%, and then I wouldn't have been quite as.
Yeah.
still, it's less than the 40% we had last year at this point, so.
Yeah,
So we need more money and we got less, not just the less percentage because our original number is bigger. Less dollars, like half the dollars we had last year at this point.
yeah. Yeah. But if
We
there's,
have more expenses and we're getting less dollars.
And
there's,
not to belabor this, but, you know, we talked to Lafarge about co-oping an alternative educational option for the students who have some alternative arrangement. Those discussions are gonna keep popping up and, you know, at some point, we gotta run something down, right? Like the problem with meeting monthly, right, is these things pop up and yeah, it's a problem, yeah, it's a problem, and next month. We keep seeing numbers like this, we've gotta say, we are going to address that deficiency by moving in this direction. And finding some cooperative venture or alternative educational environment for the kids that need it, that doesn't bleed us dry across the board.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's all right. I'll keep rolling through then. So the next section is the salary and benefits, expenses. Those are all below that 75% marker, and that's purely because of those accelerated teacher pays in June. I want that to be under 75% right now. So those all look very normal and good to me. Now going down to the elementary expenses, our purchase services and non-capital objects, those are both looking good. Our other objects are slightly over. And that's mainly because that budget is used to pay for memberships, which are paid typically at the beginning of the year. So we really aren't gonna have shouldn't have more expenses in that fund or that area for the remainder of the school year, just because it's pretty much all front loaded right away at the beginning, just paying for those memberships. Then going down to the middle school, high school expenses, everything looks really good there. We're all under that 75% threshold where I would want to see it right now. So I'm happy with where that is at. Co-curricular expenses, a couple of those are a little bit higher. One of which is I gotta make sure I'm reading it right, is the purchase services. So the purchase services, that is higher than I was expecting, but the main expense in that budget is for official fees. And we had quite a few of our sports that went on into the playoff season. So there were a few increased expenses there just because we hosted more home games than what I had originally expected, which is a fun surprise. It's just,
I thought we got money from the WA for that kind of thing.
we do for some, but it's not a full reimbursement for it. And this is just showing our expenses. The revenue that we would get from that would go into
Okay.
a separate
Yeah.
revenue account. Yeah, because for all of those, we do have to charge a gate fee, which we typically don't charge.
Yeah, but don't we have to turn around? WA gets part of that too, right?
Yeah, yep, yep, they
Because
do.
they're so poor, man.
Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, otherwise the co-curricular stuff, it looks pretty good. I know our non-capital objects is sitting right around that 75%, but we're just getting into our final sports season, so it's looking good right now.
So co-curricular, what is that besides athletics?
That is just our athletic.
It's just athletics,
Mhm.
okay. I didn't know for sure if there were other things like other sort of things.
No, that's just our athletics in
So
there.
does Kent? I mean, Kent's a numbers guy too. Does he get this budget? Does he know? So we know this is.
He sees it, or he
if
should see it
there's
in
things
the,
that we don't have money for, we just don't have money at a certain point, right?
he sees it in the packet, but I don't really go delve into it too much. If we were to be really high on like our supplies, things
Well,
like that, I would notify
we're
him,
not.
but yeah. As of right now, he's pretty good about not just buying
Oh, I
crazy
know
things.
this. My guess is he's probably very aware.
Yeah, he typically stays pretty on top of it. And going down to our computer tech expenses, our purchase services budget, that is a little higher than what I would like to see it. this budget pays for our IT services through TC Networks. And we also had some licenses that we have to pay for our Chromebooks and things like that. And the licenses that we had to pay for were a little more than expected, but that's more of a one-time fee, so I'm not overly concerned about it. It's just a little higher than where I would have liked to have seen it at this point. Then going down to the district office expenses. Most budgets look good. Our purchase services budget is higher than what I would like to see it. This is mainly due to any legal fees that we've had this year. So anytime we're in contact with the lawyer, which has been more often than it has in previous years, but it was a necessary expense. So that's why that one's a little higher. Insurance expense, we kind of went over that earlier. It's all our property and liability and stuff. So that's looking good. I expect to see it right there. Then going down is our HSA expense. This one looks good. I know most people would expect it to fall more in line with our salary and fringe ones, but we pay the HSA on a different schedule than we do the salary and fringe. It's made, we make 3 payments throughout the year. So this one is actually kind of right where I expect it to be. And we've actually had a couple more people come on our insurance, so we've had a couple other HSA payments to make because of that, but it looks pretty good.
HSA, the only ones who get HSA are the ones that are on our insurance, so.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, we've had
Oh,
a
yeah, 'cause
couple.
they have to have the high deductible.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. Alrighty. And going on to the next page is our transportation expenses. This all looks really good. Non-capital objects is slightly higher, but really nothing I'm too concerned about. The other objects, that one looks scary because it says we've spent 275% of our budget.
200.
The reason for that is Jeff got a couple of different memberships this year, one of which he hasn't gotten for a while, and when you have $100 budget, it's pretty easy to go way over when you get just even one extra membership. Then going down to the transportation fuel expense, all of that is coming in really good right now. We're well under where we could be. Custodial expenses is next. Everything looks good there, with the exception of the capital objects that was a little high. This is because that budget was set specifically for the new floor scrubber. We have purchased that. Nothing else should be going in that budget, so that's why it's pretty much all expended, was because we bought the one thing that I had budgeted for. Other objects as well as a little higher. There was a couple extra memberships purchased with the changeover. It was just kind of some extra expenses, but that should go back down to normal next year because we shouldn't have any changeover. Then down to maintenance expense, all of those budgets are coming in really good, well under where I have them budgeted to be. Same with the utility expenses, those are coming in under. And the food service, it's looking good right now from where I budgeted it. We're under that 75% for both the expenses and revenues, and right now our expenses and revenues are coming in really close to each other, so hopefully there's no big deficit at the end of the year, but we do have a fund balance.
They get to have their own little fund balance.
Yeah.
So.
Yep,
And we're supposed to be, if I understood that right, or maybe you remember from that one, whatever the state did a couple of years ago, we're supposed to be trying to get that worked down anyway, right?
If I remember correctly, we had too much in there, didn't we?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be careful to like all the expenses, that we cover in that fund, so.
yeah, you can have a max of, I think it's 3 months worth of expenses in your fund balance, so we're within that now, so even if we do get into a little bit of a deficit this year, it's not the end of the world, just because we have to stay in that limit that they give us. But that is all I have. Does anyone have any other questions on it?
Just one quick one, why are transportation fuel expenses, why are we doing so well? Yeah.
I was expecting higher fuel costs when I
Oh.
made this, so it's a good surprise, but yeah, always try and plan for the worst, but things have been coming in okay so far.
Any other questions for Allison on the budget report?
Good job. I had talked to her ahead of time about what's actually.
All right, we'll move on then to our we had a brief email exchange on this, as you'll recall, but policy to distribute or post literature from outside organizations. Did we have the policy in the packet here?
I had shared that online, because there were 4 of them.
Oh. So we received a request from who, a local church? To send things home with students, right, announcing a church program. And it's been a couple weeks since that discussion online, but as I recall, the juice or the thread of that email thread was that anybody, you know, within limits can post on school bulletin boards, but we're not gonna support any outside group sending things home in student backpacks, et cetera, so. I don't know what other discussion we
No,
wanna
that's
have,
Pretty much the gist of it, I would
That's what
say.
we,
and I can't remember the wording of the policies, but that's kind
Yeah.
of in
I
line
looked at
with.
the policy too, I thought that, I think one of you two replied about.
Yeah,
Well, I-
And I think what, that, you know, conformed our policy.
Right.
very
and that's
well.
what I told them, and I'm not sure exactly why they
Okay.
asked you guys.
I wondered about that too, because I
Because
was gonna mention that the school employee that was referenced in that maybe you should mention to them. Cause I didn't realize it had either, and I thought, you know, that person should be told, well, if you have this kind of a question, it's
Just
best
ask
to come to the
ask
administration
me.
first, then. Because honestly, we're the ones who can pull out the policy, and I don't know what's there better than I would, probably can.
And I don't even think it was, they didn't like the answer, they were just, I don't know why they did what they did.
We'll see if we can get 2 different answers. And we'll take the one we like.
But we're all on the same page in terms of how we responded. Next up, solar powered scoreboard for the baseball field, is there?
yeah, so we had at the last building and grounds meeting, we had talked about that. I know there's been some discussion, and I know Kim talked in the fall. And had gone through what the cost would be for the power to go into the baseball field and everything as far as using the generator. But we had talked to building and grounds to look at an option of solar power to score the scoreboard, and it came in at $4,200. So then we're back to, I guess, the question on the generator and the power. And so maybe I had told Marla, I think maybe at some point we put it back on the building and grounds and have that discussion of, do we have a board vote on, you know what I mean? On,
And the thing would be to know where we're gonna fund it from. To me, it sounds like something that should be come out of that Griffin. We still have money there, right? And I
Right.
know we took a big chunk for the pool and we've used them for the track and things over the years, but
Mhm.
I know we still are getting funds in the baseball field in particular.
I was wondering that too, cause
Right.
it's
I think
league
that-
driven baseball
Mhm.
field,
Yeah.
like, is.
And I've been told that that was kind of, you know, his sport, so.
Yeah,
But I don't know, maybe we just need to check and see what's there for funding, and that would be my suggestion. Maybe we just
What-
need to decide to get it done and.
And is that something that they're looking at for the softball field too, or not?
No, they have a scoreboard up there.
I know they have a scoreboard,
What's power?
but no, they have enough power to barely run the
It's-
scoreboard, and now they had to
yeah,
have a
there's an
generator.
issue.
I think they got the baseball generator.
They got their own.
I say ours because I do concessions for baseball, but
Another generator was bought for the
Yes.
baseball field, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, there's enough juice to run the scoreboard, just not
And-
anything else.
But then there's,
for, the softball, but they have a generator
yeah,
for their
but then there's
concessions.
for the rest.
And the bigger generator, the baseball team got, and it runs. We didn't have any problems when I did concessions the other night, so, and I had an extra thing plugged in, so. I brought a coffee pot, cause I made hot chocolate, it was so cold out there, but.
The concern with the generator is it's just a loud noise in the background the whole time that,
It is, you can't hear it,
no.
not at the baseball field anyway. It's way down the first baseline, like by the batting cage thing, and we don't see it. The only other thing that the concern was, the radio wants to come and do
Oh, right.
play-by-play, whatever, of baseball games and softball games, but we don't have enough power to run their equipment. The softball field definitely does not have, but now with this new generator, we may have enough. Is what was discussed the other day.
Yeah, I don't know, I feel like, again, kind of new in with this right now, but it has come up, you know, numerous times and keeps coming back, and we've looked at different avenues, and we had the discussion this fall and looked at it at the expenses, and it really wasn't a board vote, it was more in the committee and a explanation, but I feel like at some point, if we don't make a decision and the board doesn't say yes or no one way, we're gonna be talking about this again
Yeah,
every month.
Yeah.
Until we have a decision, you know, one way or another, of which route we really wanna go.
Permanent power, they thought was in excess of $10,000,
The,
right?
the last one, Kim gave the report this fall, I think it was 16,000.
And I think that's why that got stopped
Yes,
at that.
yeah,
point.
yeah.
It just seemed
Yeah.
like that was a lot of money to spend for
Yeah.
power to a scoreboard when we had a
Correct.
solution that was working.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And do we still, I mean,
Yeah, and hearing, I mean, so it was definitely
Yeah,
functional, everything
yeah.
was good.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm good
it's
with that.
a
Yeah.
little less convenient, but I
Right.
mean, it works.
Yeah.
And as
Right.
long as we don't run out of gas like we did last year, we're fine.
Right.
And toilet paper, we can't run out of toilet paper.
I don't think those are the same thing.
Sorry. I was even gonna suggest now that we have that shed down there, maybe we could get some extra toilet paper stored in there, so when people come up to me and ask for toilet paper, I can give them some, just in case.
Right.
so, but the question, I guess, with this $4,200 for the solar, I mean, is that gonna be a better solution? I mean, is that enough?
That
to run
becomes the
other things?
question, because
Yeah, I
if it's
don't know.
completely functional right now, doing what it does,
Why can't we just? live with
why
that?
do we not, but yet. Again, I know there's been contacts and questions, and I just feel like until,
Somebody don't like the idea that
Yes.
there's the generators.
Until-
Permanent aspect in there is what.
Say, I didn't do it this time.
no, I know, and I'm not saying it's, I'm just trying to discuss the reality of the
Right.
situation where, you know, whichever way it goes, it goes. But I think it's one where I feel like it has to be like, the board has decided this is the best avenue. It's voted on, and this is the direction we're gonna go, because I feel like if,
Well, the board's probably only gonna vote if we're going somewhere that requires spending $4,000 or $16,000.
right, or not necessarily, I mean, here's the options, is this good, is it,
You know, I
you know,
think
I don't know, would you agree with that, Earl, where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it just, you keep getting this call that, you know, why ain't you guys getting that?
Right,
Oh.
But historically, if we've got a setup that works,
right,
we usually kind of say, well, what we have is working. Is there any big advantage to doing the other? I don't know if there is.
Well, rather than fleshing this out now, you suggested maybe this goes back to building and grounds at the next meeting, and you can do sort of a cost benefit.
All right,
solar
becomes,
versus-
or if we're, I
Action
mean,
agenda to go with this, so that's.
Well, yeah.
Cause we've discussed it in buildings and ground about it, and it keeps coming back that, why you spent umpteen thousand on a track, but you ain't gonna spend nothing over here at the baseball diamond to have power for us, and
Yeah, that was brought up at the baseball game the other
Oh, I'm
day
sure.
too, that the football field is always fertilized and looks gorgeous and has sprinklers when we have a drought, and the baseball field is dead. Like, that was something that came up too.
I
But we
think, don't we do fertilize the baseball
I think-
diamond.
fertilize,
Yeah.
Right.
that doesn't get,
You don't get watered, but
No.
not
I
what,
can tell you it's a lot better than it was back in the sixties.
How old,
Sandburrs out there all the time then.
how
So-
old is the scoreboard that we have out there?
It's
Does
a new
anybody
one.
know?
What-
that, it is actually
It's.
newer, yeah, it would have been, now that I think about it, I don't
Didn't we
remember
get that one in the
exactly
softball about the same time?
which year, but it would have been in the time I've been here, so
Yeah.
sometime within the
Right.
last 17 years.
Yeah, I think we.
But the building and grounds committee did talk about the solar option. and-
Yes,
We talked about
that's
it,
what we wanted to
and
explore,
that's
just to
where,
see if it
that's where
was
we're on this.
feasible.
So why don't we bring this back next month as an action item, and we'll have the discussion here and decide.
Yeah.
One way or
And
another.
I like the idea that, you know, it does seem like this is a Griffin funded.
Yeah, but at 42, I had no problem with that, you know, it's just like, oh, 16,000, now that's a big dip to take out of it when if you have a $4,000 option that
Right.
will work.
It just
and
still
we
doesn't,
already have a working option, so.
I was just gonna say, it just, it still doesn't solve what's already working right now, other than it being actually all electricity.
Well, and
because,
it's permanent, right? It's
you
not
know,
something that's.
That's true,
set
it is,
up.
it is
You
permanent.
don't have to worry
There's
about
that
running out of
aspect.
gas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna run out of gas, that's true.
So what do they use up the softball diamond then to, if like you say concession up there?
They have a generator, I think, that they use for concessions.
They got a small. one
Because
like it.
the scoreboard is on,
Yeah,
it draws electricity.
that was a
A
discussion
little?
we've been having this week too, we're checking into, because it wasn't on for the game the other night.
Oh, the scoreboard wasn't?
Yes, no, so that we're trying to double check
Figure out
on that. Why it wasn't on, was it just, cause I mentioned it to Ken, as far as I knew it worked, and then he was like, I thought it worked, and so we gotta find out exactly, was it just not on, or? Does it not
Someplace
work?
on the line, some line got beat up.
So.
All right, so that'll come back next month and we'll flesh that out. Item 4, on the discussion items, you remember last month, Isaac recommended we review our cell phone policy, given some rumblings in the state legislature, and I asked that the teachers be surveyed, and Jeremy is here, Mr. Lee, to talk about that survey and what the teachers told us.
Yeah, so, sent out a survey a couple weeks ago, we got 17 responses, so, most of the high school, middle school teachers responded, just to go over a few questions that were posed on there. First one, how do you think cell phone use impacts student learning and academic performance? 94% said negative. How do you feel cell phones influence student interactions? 94% said decrease positive interactions. Next question, do you see cell phone use in school as a distraction? 94% said yes. And then if they did respond yes, I had another question that said, if yes, how are students distracted by phones? A lot of them were like the phone's in the pocket, they're missing a notification, like, so they're itching to know what's in their pocket, and obviously that goes on until they check. Keeping up with social media, less engagement with peers was a pretty typical response. You know, even if it's on the table and they get a notification, whether it's on their Apple Watch or something else like that, it vibrates, they're still, again, like wondering what's going on, wondering who's answering, you know, the list goes on and on. I did include there if teachers use cell phones as educational tools, 75% said they do. I would be one of those teachers, so I'd be included in that, but I didn't do the form. And then how they use them, like I use them for a project right now. It's like one time out of the year for a week where they record, they're basically meteorologists, so they discuss weather maps after we talked about them in school, in class. And they essentially give a weather forecast. I know Nikki Paulson's giving one too. She just sent an email about it. Some are as simple as they use their calculators instead of, you know, walking up to the front of the room to borrow one. So there was that, and then just overall what modifications, you know, I took a little snippet of what the school board policy currently is for cell phone use, and just asked what modifications would help ensure uniformity across classrooms and better help enforce improper cell phone use. 35% said consistent enforcement by staff. Another chunk of that, 35% said cell phones should be stored in lockers. You know, cell phone lockers in each classroom was an option. So yeah, you know, pretty straightforward. Teachers don't want them in classrooms. Any other questions that you guys have about input from that? We had a staff meeting this morning, and it was a pretty clear consensus. I mean, pretty much utters the same things that were in the form. Does anyone have any questions?
So I mean, the policies all look like, I mean, you're essentially gonna have a no use in class anyways, right? So to make a change of this, it'd be.
Not necessarily, because that's kind of where we came to this morning, is that right now, the way it reads is that teachers have discretion. So if you get done with your work and you're all good, okay, fine, whatever.
And a teacher says, hey. it's
You're fine to
have
be on
them
your
out.
phone. That's where we have the issue, and that's where, in the meeting this morning, we talked about, there's lots of different avenues, whatever. We've just come to and I won't say it was 100% consensus, but definitely everybody had the ability to give their input and talk, and where we're at, that we definitely left the meeting with hey, they're going to be out of classes totally. They are not allowed in. There's no discretion. The only discretion is if it's a case where Jeremy comes and says, hey, Aaron, I've got this project going this week. You know, for this 1 week, can I do this? Otherwise, there's no more discretion left. It's just they are out of classes and they are not in there. They can use them outside of classes, but not in, which will become a learning curve of realistically, they're going to go from storing them in their pockets to it's going to have to stay in their locker. And instead of being accessible immediately in their pockets, it's going to be there, which with that will come other avenues of, hey, you know, be very conscious of who's leaving your class. And if it's during class and they're on their phone, it's give me your phone. So there will be some things, but I think the big change, Isaac, will be is that there's no longer any discretion of saying, okay, today's the day, you know, we can do it or whatever.
And the policy just changing, it says teacher, what did it say in there? Teacher
It says teacher
discretion.
discretion.
And all, we would get rid of that and just say administration.
Administration.
Yeah.
I will say, when I read this, that was the thing that occurred to me, because it's several points in here where teacher, unless a teacher,
Right.
or at.
Sure.
And I wondered about, that was, you answered my question when you spoke there, Jeremy, because that was gonna be my question, is, you know, and I mean, I taught post-secondary, but we get these kids like, some of them anyway, the year after they leave here. And it is a definite distraction. I mean, I haven't taught for 10 years, but it's distracting then. It's even worse now. You're gonna take their watch away too, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we talked.
Yeah, that's part of
Because
any,
part of-
anything, any communication device,
But,
whether it's,
yeah, I think
You know.
there was, that's what I wanna know, because I would have been, it's way too, you know, too much dependent on teachers, and no matter how much you like your peers, you know darn well that maybe you're enforcing it the way
Mhm.
very pretty strictly because that's what you want, and others aren't. It just makes it harder, so I.
And it's a battle
support
that-
Totally,
It's a battle that we never win as
You can't,
teachers,
yeah.
you know, it's like, put it away. Or
Right.
hand it over, cause it's going to the office, and it'll always be like, nope, I
this
was
is-
like,
this is-
okay, then you have to go down there. And you get to take it, or try and get, you know, get it taken away, so. It's a battle, like with the terminology change without the teachers, it's a battle that we don't have to fight.
Yep.
Someone else has to fight it, but
and this is administration, and this is, bottom line, this is a board policy, and you can blame it on us and have tell them to come to a meeting and talk.
So what about beyond in the classroom to just, you know, your time in hallways between classes? And I mean, that's even going to lunchrooms. I mean, just the lack of social interaction, when that becomes nothing but screen time, you know, after we had this conversation, I read a bunch of articles. There's, you know, all kinds of conversations around, it's not just the classroom might be even the smallest piece of this. It's more of the interactions between students outside of classrooms, you know, going, you know, walking down the hallway looking like this because that's the only time you're on your phone, going to a lunchroom and looking at your phone the entire time you're at lunch instead of talking to your peers. You know, and I don't know that we want to be, you know, too strict about this whole thing, but I also,
right,
I mean, I do feel like there's a benefit to forcing kids to put the phones down. You know, and, you know, I think we live in a society where we're all addicted to our phones. I mean, I'm very much realizing this for myself, and I feel like this is something that, you know, as an educational environment, we need to teach kids that, you know, this maybe isn't acceptable, especially during some of those times of days too, you know, just
Right.
when you're supposed to be interacting with other people.
Mhm.
You go to a restaurant, how many people are sitting there looking at their phones? You know,
Right,
it's-
right.
I think it's something that we need to kind of mold people to kind of change that expectation.
Mhm.
Where else do you get that if we're not doing it in the school?
Right. Yeah, I get where you're coming from 100%. I just feel like
Walk before you run, maybe.
that
I
would
don't
be
know.
that would be a huge jump from, and, you know, and I've talked to, you know, with other schools, and the reality is that from most of them that I know, they have what we have right now. There's an element of discretion within it. And some that may work, some that may not. I talked to one the other day, that's what they had. And they just said they basically are at the same point we are, like, this isn't working, there's too much inconsistencies, and so they just removed the discretion part. And they said it has been 100 times better. Now, do they still have them in the halls and stuff? Yes, but it's at least taken that first step to eliminate that battle in class of, we've got this part and, so again, it's certainly something, we'll have to approve this in May, I guess. It's a conversation we could certainly go back and have, but I don't know. Jeremy, you can speak from a teacher perspective. I feel like
Yeah.
people would feel pretty comfortable right now to start with this and see how it goes and where it goes, and then we can, evolve from there if needed to feel if it becomes more. But I get where you're coming from. I do 100%. And it's also,
It's a leap. I mean, I'm
Yes,
not
yeah,
arguing
yeah.
that it's not a leap.
yes,
But and I kind of wonder too, because I think in your policy, it also has like, are study halls acceptable to use?
no, it would be, we talked about that. No, it'd be everything.
So
No study hall, no,
So it would only be before, after school, and during your breaks
Yeah.
between periods.
yeah,
Which, I mean, I think it's a great first step.
Yeah.
I think it helps. But,
And from a teaching standpoint, from a policy standpoint, it seems like a big change, but it's not like they have them out in class if teachers allow it every single day. Like, I can count on one hand how many times I've had 2 to 3 minutes to spare at the end of class where they could. So it's not like we're taking away something huge from them. It's just it's gonna be hard right away for them, because cat got out of the bag right away this morning, like third hour. Students came into my room, cell phones are being taken away next year. And like, where do you hear this? But they were like understanding, they recognize it's a problem too if they're reflective, but I don't see lunch being a huge problem because we do offer like open gym. So there's
Sure.
that interaction. It's half an hour. Most of them are on their phones already if they want to be.
Mhm.
So
and we've
I
only
think
got 3-minute passing periods,
Yeah.
so there's not much time to,
they will learn fast,
I
I think, but I don't think it's gonna be a huge shock to them or a huge adjustment for them, phone use wise. It'll be hard for them not to have it in their pockets. Sure. But, yeah,
It's an addiction. I really am glad you brought that up, Isaac, because the policy committee, of course, talked about this at our meeting earlier tonight, and we gravitated toward Aaron's suggestion that no phones in the classroom. But everybody was supportive of between classes, lunch, before and after school is okay, but I know what you're talking about, because they're as addictive as whiskey or anything else. And thinking about what you said though, maybe we start allowing it between classes, lunch, see how it goes. But as parents, Eric and I, like everybody else, we deal with our kids' use of cell phones and social media. And we've been horribly unsuccessful. But when we talk about how to address that, it's a carrot or a stick. This policy is kind of a stick. But maybe we could creatively think about ways to use a carrot to allow students to engage socially or get involved in other activities like open gym or board games on the lunch tables, or hopscotch used to be the thing on the playground, right? But something analogous to that where they have to engage with other people, and that digitally every moment they're not in the classroom. So maybe some discussions about the carrot incentivizing social engagement outside the classroom would be good.
we had kind of that, when we had sources of strength, when that was funded. Angie put a lot of those things together, like sit with someone that you don't normally sit with. But sources of strength hasn't been, 2 years?
Yeah.
So, but we don't have to have sources of strength to do that either.
Right. And honestly, now that you say that, I think about it, I think kids are on their phones less at lunch than what people would actually.
That's kind of.
I
the
mean,
point. Yeah.
if you come, I sit in the lunchroom, most days, that I'm out there, and there's lots of kids around, and there's a huge group of kids that are in the gym playing, and there's kids that are at their tables, and there certainly are some, but it's not like you look up and everybody's like,
No, yeah.
So I think if we do go to the next step where I can see this will be the first issue we're gonna deal with is the element of I gotta go to the bathroom, and all of a sudden they're in the hall and they're, and so I think the next step would be no passing periods. You can have it at snack and you can have it at lunch. that's just kind of the progression that I think would be,
Sure.
you know, when I think of just the next element of where we will have some battles, it will be in between those hours of, you know, I'm reading this and now I'm late for class, you know, and we're gonna have some of that, but I think that's gonna have to be the part where, you know, that's going to be part of it is, you know, well, I'm not in class right now. No, but you're supposed to be, so give me your phone, you know, it's gonna be that part of, we're gonna have some of that, we just will, but. and
No,
it'll-
they're just gonna do what you tell them.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll just be like, yeah, we're gonna put everything away right now. There will be, it'll be like anything. It'll be, I would anticipate those first 2 weeks, it's going to be a training of understanding, okay, I gotta leave my locker and not have it in my pocket. And then I'm sure there'll be lots of phantom vibrates and, you know, where they're like, I don't have my phone, you know? But it's like anything. I mean, it's gonna be a change and it'll take some time, but I think people will. And I have heard the comment from kids too, where, you know, I can't remember who told me today. Somebody came and said, actually, I think it was, I don't remember.
Reagan?
No, it wasn't Reagan. Was it? I think it was maybe Heather Martin who had the conversation. The kids must have been talking about it too. And some of them were actually like, you know, this probably would be better for us. We probably shouldn't be on our phone all the time and, you know, it's probably a good thing. And I've heard that from other schools too, where kids then also they don't have it. You're like, okay,
At the
this
end
is
of the
good.
world.
I don't have to worry about it, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. I feel like it's a good step forward to start with that. You know, I think if everybody's kind of in consensus tonight, that would be the avenue we go. We'd actually approve it in May. And then we could actually start communication before the school year ended of, hey, this is what this is gonna look like in the fall. So be aware, and then we can try to flesh out some of those questions before the school year starts and go from there.
So the policy committee or whatever this needs to, I mean, whatever in here has to get, in this existing policy has to get changed. And
Yep.
then, because if you wanna put it in your handbook, then we need to, as a board, get the change approved.
Yep.
Yeah. So it probably essentially, I suppose they'd be on the same. Will they be on the same action agenda? Would it be, or would it just be in the handbook? I mean, I guess,
Well, we're gonna change the policy, the only, and you can, I mean, I guess, whatever you think.
yeah, they
you
kind
have
of
to
coincide,
right
yeah,
there.
so,
But the
okay.
other thing is make sure this policy number you reference in your student.
Yeah,
handbook
we're-
doesn't exist.
We're actually going to put the whole, based on this one, put the whole policy in the
Oh, okay.
handbook. Cause we talked about that too, where the policies are 2 or 3 pages and what's in the handbook just due to,
Yeah,
is a lot
I
less.
get it if you wanna
It's
just.
pretty
condense
tough,
it or
but this one
something.
might be one to put the whole thing in there, just so it's in there,
Or at
so,
least put it in an addendum or something that they can get to easily, cause I doubt it, they'll.
yeah.
So Janet makes a good point in terms of timing of the next policy committee meeting, Rich. I think we had talked at the end of our earlier meeting about just meeting again at 6 o'clock before the May meeting, but we'll have to meet before that.
Yeah,
So
well,
that-
no, I mean, I was thinking not 6 o'clock before the main meeting, just having another meeting prior to the board meeting, so we could go through those 03 policies, talk any legislative type stuff, and then the cell phone.
Okay, good. Yeah, just so Marla has time to get it in the board packet.
Yep.
Yep, okay, good. Anything else on that? Thanks for bringing that up last month. That was a good discussion we've had.
Well, thanks for getting all the feedback from teachers. I think
Yeah.
that's helpful.
Good work.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Very good. Next up, second grade staffing for the next school year.
This conversation will carry a little bit over into closed session as well, but this conversation started a couple of years ago before I was principal, when we have our first grade, which was at 20. We wanted to have it in the 2, but at 20, it's hard to justify, and I thought it was hard to justify to have 2 classes of 10, because if somebody moves, then we have 10 and 9. We've given them a lot of support in kindergarten, especially. There was a full-time 8 in there, and as they've gotten a little bit older, they're doing a lot of really good stuff. However, there are no longer 21. There are 22 in there, with another one coming next week to make us to 23. And 2 open enrolled kids who I know are coming for sure, which will take us to 25. And with the needs, and I think we have 2 fathers of children in that class in our room as we speak. And the wife of one of them who has subbed in there more than once, and she's done a very good job. It's kind of a handful. And at 20 and 21, yep, I think they should be, I have no problem with them being one. At 25, things start to get, I think we can do a better job if we can split them. And this isn't just me talking, I swung up and talked to Kim, our mighty leader, about this too. So this isn't just me saying, hey, can we have another teacher? Kim supports that decision as well. We have the class, the fourth graders right now are 25, there's a class of 13 and a class of 12. So that's not out of line with what we've had before. If we go back a few years, there's some other 13s and 12s. Talking to Miss Lyon, their teacher, she doesn't think that anybody's leaving. We've had Calvin moved in, Wyatt came back. I'm missing one other kid, but that's where it's got us for now. And the 2 open enrolled kids, our new bookkeeper son is coming for sure. And an open enrolled lady, she called to ask if she could sign her son up for summer school. They live in district and they're open enrolled. Yeah, that was the one to Crawford now, and she said, we're bringing them to Kickapoo and wanted to start the summer school. So I know for sure that we'll have 20.
So.
Yep, so they'll be here. And I talked to the most important person, the lady with the money, and she said that that's not inconceivable for the budget next year. So what I would like the board to think about, and we'll talk in closed session too about the openings I think we have, is to think about if we can split that into 2 sections next year.
What does 4K look like? What's 4K now and what's 4K next year?
They'll all be 2, should be,
Okay,
everybody
so we
will
have
be 2.
no other little.
No other little ones, knock on, because I think for preschool orientation, yeah, 25 or 26, and like Melissa says, there's always some that come out of the woodwork.
She said 5 or 6 have called this week about it.
Since
so.
then, so should be in the 30s, and there's 2 that are gonna stay. Oh, thank God for COVID for that.
Right?
No,
They are, they are. They're-
It's a terrible name.
I know, but
You influenza baby.
but yeah, there's a few challenging behaviors, and I'm not even worried about the behaviors because they're not out of line at all. But what I think would be, and this happened the one year that I taught where I did that, where I team taught with Mrs. Mathis, and we had 23 kids in a room in 2nd grade and 3rd grade, is when you have one class like that, they never get away from each other. They're together for everything, and that you can watch it. And Amy said last year, you could kind of see it towards the end. They just really start to get sick of each other. Because even when they go to recess, they all go together. I mean, they are, it's just, they never get apart. And then they never got away from each other last year, and they can't get away from each other this year. Well, next year we can split them. You know what I mean? It makes the smaller class sizes, it allows you with more time to do a lot of other things educationally. And yet we have them split up for reading, and we pull kids for math to make smaller groups for that. But during social studies, it's still a big group, and it's hard to get to everybody. It just is. And I think that it would really benefit those group of kids if we could do that. So, and I can answer any questions that you have, except if we have enough money, but she says we do.
Especially if
That may remain to be seen, that we need $600,000 for,
It'll show up, Janet, don't worry.
I don't, at this point, I'm kind of with her. Ken.
We're talking a new hire.
Yep.
Required.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. There's a whole other discussion to be held on staffing.
Any other questions for Andy on that? And the preschool numbers again, you said 30 in there somewhere.
Well, I think there were 20, I thought Melissa said 25 or 27 showed up for screening, and a few more always show up, but I'm not going to stake my life on that number at all until they're actually here and we see.
I mean, this is every year, the last 2 years, it's been encouraging because we were talking
Just
like.
knock on wood, Scott.
I just want them, I just want them
Don't change
25 and
the
above.
change the pot. Yeah, that's just great. We're growing.
Just keep 25, just at least 25 and above. That's my magic number.
Yep. All right, very good. Moving on then. Health insurance expense update. Allison, is that you?
That is me. That should be the last page in your packet. So this is the monthly financial summary report that I get from the insurance center. Right now, this only has our expenses through February, just because there is a little bit of lag time, so we don't have all of our March expenses in there yet. But this is the most complete that I have at the moment. Those first couple columns show our fixed costs, so it says fixed cost, but it's a fixed dollar amount per employee that's on it, so that's why there is some fluctuation, even though it says fixed. Then the next chunk gets into a more variable one, so it has our weekly claims that we pay for medical, pharmaceutical, neighborhood family clinics, and then the total of those before any rebates. And then there's a few columns that are highlighted in green. So those are any rebates that we get back. They could be, we have a stop loss of $50,000. So anyone that has medical costs over $50,000, once they hit that, we get reimbursed from it. So we have had a few people that have hit that thus far in the year. So we've started to receive rebates from that. At the moment, we don't have any claims over the max liability. But then that third column highlighted in green is our pharmaceutical rebates. I've emailed these to the insurance center, but I haven't gotten an updated form from them. We have had those pharmacy rebates. In November, we got one for just under 18,000, and then in January, we got one for about 25,000. So we do have some extra revenue that isn't shown here, which in the end helps our number a little bit.
They come directly to us. then.
Yes.
They don't go through the insurance center.
Yes, that's correct. They come
So
directly to us.
where do you, I don't know how to say, where do you put them in the accounting system?
So it goes into our self-funded health insurance fund, like it is shown
That's
in
all I wanna
our,
make sure is we can put it back to offset.
yeah, yep. Yeah, so and those rebates are helping us with our final total, because when you look at this page as it sits, it's showing that we have about a $30,000 deficit. With that 43 and change rebates that we've got, we're actually coming out ahead by about $13,000. So and last year we had a phenomenal year with the self-funded health insurance. It worked out where it was one of our really good years. This year it's looking like we're gonna come in right about average, so our expenses are gonna be right about where our revenues should be. And when we originally met with the insurance center, they had projected in a 10-year span, you're gonna have 2 really good years, 2 really bad years, and then the remainder average. So as long as this year is average and not a really bad year, I'm gonna be pretty happy with it.
And keep in mind, before we went to this model, when we had a really good year, we still got an increase.
Okay.
That's right.
Just wasn't as much. Then we
Yeah.
had a normal year and we got pretty hefty increases then, and
Yeah,
you can only imagine when we have a bad year.
yeah.
What's the SF cost in the middle there? SF?
Uh,
Self-funded.
Self-funded costs,
Yeah,
yep.
okay. Adherence to the, not requirement, but is everybody exploring? Staff, when they need to see a doctor, are they calling the number and getting the cheapest option? If they have to go in for a tonsillectomy, are they finding the?
So I don't get names on who does it, but I know we have a few that call in. That is an educational piece that we actually talked with Janice about, that the next in-service, we wanna hit that again, just because it's being used, but it could be used more, which could end up saving us more, and it could benefit the employee too, because if they do go with that cheaper option, then they get a kickback from it too.
Yeah, that, if we're gonna succeed with this, that message has to resonate with everybody. Cause that, as I recall, when we were discussing this, that was the pathway to success, finding the lowest cost option.
Yeah, yep, so it's just kind of doing more education on that, and that's something that, and Janice is wonderful, she comes to.
She's really good.
She comes to typically our spring, one of our spring in-service days and goes over everything. And she explains it much better than I can, because she lives and breathes that every day. But that's one thing that we can kind of make suggestions on, like, hey, really push this hard in your presentation. And that's one thing that she said, we're gonna go over that again, just because it's used, but it could be better.
And refresh my memory here, our employees pay no premium right now for this insurance.
Correct, right now
So,
it's,
I mean, I know the carrot and the stick thing, so Scott may not think too much of this, but I think that's something to push too during that time is
mhm.
you look around, you're gonna have a hard time finding another school where people don't pay a premium, and this is how you can help us keep it that way.
And along the lines of the carrot and the stick, staff are already being given a carrot, right? If you call this number and you save money, you're gonna, here's $200 for
Yeah.
you. The flip side of that, if we can identify cases where they didn't, they pay it. I mean,
I don't-
I'm not.
I don't know if legally you can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if
That-
legally we can do that.
That might be a
Well-
little more difficult, but
Not saying we do it now, but there's a lot of value to the whole school in the budget that supports the school to this model. But if we're not maximizing the gains because individuals are making poor choices,
yeah, and it
maybe
might
some
be,
sort of stick has to come out to.
it might be hard to learn that on an individual level just because of HIPAA with, they have a right
Yeah,
to
that's what it is.
privacy. But it would be more of an overall stick then where instead of no premiums, we might have to start charging premiums and.
Yeah, the disadvantage of that is we'd have to charge them to everybody, whereas if we had a way of,
Mhm.
or
No,
we
we-
get a premium rebate if you,
Mhm.
use this, I don't know what, we'd have to figure out where the savings need to be, but
Yeah,
again, Janice and their staff there is really good at that sort of stuff too, looking at the numbers and telling us trends that, and
mhm.
along that way, even last year, they helped us rectify the situation where I don't know, people were using emergency room as a,
Mhm.
basically instead of.
As a clinic.
Yeah. Yep, and to my knowledge, because when we switched to the self-funded health insurance, that was a stipulation, whereas if you did use the emergency room for a non-emergent case, you'd get a penalty. To my knowledge, we haven't come across that with anyone, it's
I think
kind
it's
of
five
sort of,
hundred dollars, isn't it?
yeah, it's a $500 penalty. So far, we haven't had anyone that has gotten that penalty, so there's definitely benefits to that.
And then, in case anybody else, I think most everybody's aware, but just to keep it in mind, this is our second year with them, and we had a kind of like a buy-in cost or something, we paid an extra $20,000 last year and this year to become part of this self-insured group. Kind of help funding the reserve that the whole group has to cover people, and that'll be off next year, so there's 20,000 for next year that we wouldn't have to budget for. The service has been great, so I don't know, there haven't been a lot of drawbacks here. I know last year was amazing, I would always like to see that every year, but still, we're in good shape with this.
Yeah, so far it's going well. I haven't heard any big complaints for the staff, and I feel like if there was a lot of issues, we'd hear about it. So.
Ever-
Yeah, I don't know if you guys. have
Ever
heard
since
any-
we've gone to the HSA instead of what we had before, because being the union president, I used to get complaints a lot. Once we started the high deductible,
Actually, been better.
I didn't get any. I don't know if you would get any, but I didn't get any.
Very good. Anything else, anybody?
Yeah, we were.
You guys,
Last thing before our reports, then, schedule of meetings. Rich, you just want to schedule that by email, the policy committee meeting?
Yeah, I'll send something out. I mean, I was looking either the week to give time to update that policy and then maybe research some stuff on the legislative stuff, either the week of the 21st or the week of the 28th.
Okay.
But I'll send out an email to Marla and you and Peggy, and we can nail down a date here in the next week.
Any other committee meetings that?
Do we need to do a negotiations one, Allison?
Yep, I was gonna see if the negotiations, and we can set it up over email if that's easier for Rich, but start doing teacher negotiations so that hopefully those can be finalized at the May meeting and we can kind of, so.
You wanted,
Don't do anything special for me. Do what you need to do and I'll figure it out.
Well, would it be
Let's do
easier?
it as email so that I have my planner, cause.
Yep,
that's fine.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll send an email out tomorrow to set up a meeting.
Right, I'm on that one.
Yeah.
I don't think.
any buildings, right?
I mean, we're not gonna be able to decide it. I mean, I guess we're in the cusp of what we
Yeah.
can approve, so I think it just comes back to the board.
I think it probably should come back to the board.
I would agree.
I mean, not to overrule. it.
So we just have it on there as the solar power as an action item.
I think so.
Is that, and that number that's there wasn't actually the number?
We got the actual, we didn't get the actual
Paper.
But you have
paper
it,
one,
but-
but yes, that was the bit that he got, but we'll definitely get it. So if we put that as an
If
action
that
item.
is,
I think
if you guys, committee, if you'd rather just
Okay.
address it again.
As you wanna talk about it separate again, I don't think we'll get anywhere, so.
I think to Aaron's point, we just need to put it in stone and
Yeah.
move forward.
So Peggy, you feel from out there, if there was something that's permanent to run the
Yeah, I think it
scoreboard
would be
and
better.
running, and you'd run off the generator, that would be more functional than, okay.
I think that, well, yeah, I don't know if the scoreboard could connect. If it was solar power, if you could run electricity from it too. I don't know how, you know what I mean? There may be a
Right,
way
yeah.
to do that, but I don't know.
But
But it's fine. Like,
Okay. Alright,
All right, moving on, then our superintendent is currently split between the two gentlemen. Am I right? Do you guys have anything from that level of your?
just to hit on a few things, and I know we've kind of talked a lot about funding and stuff tonight, but I think obviously with the last spring referendums, definitely some winners and losers, so to speak. I think statewide, it was around 69% pass, but when you look at some of them that failed just locally, Weston, DeSoto, Prairie du Chien, I guess just thankful that our community passed ours as they did last fall. I think we've talked about that to staff a lot of just knowing that that passed and numbers are staying better than what we anticipated. It's just, you feel bad for the situations that, you know, I think of a Weston or a DeSoto or Prairie du Chien, and it's gonna be tough, you know, I mean, that's just that aspect. And, you know, with that isn't really even factoring in the element of, we talked about a little bit earlier with just state funding with, you know, DEI type stuff or education or the special ed, or, you know, I guess an update on that. There's been like with the Title VI part of, you will lose your funding if you don't follow this or follow that. We got something from the DPI today that said, at this point, we will not be collecting any certifications from schools. We will not be sending the requested certification to the USDE, just to get an update, because it was going to be the funding that people would lose funding from a Title VI standpoint if you did not change, jump in there with me, and the wording on some of your policies. So with the gender identity, that element of the things.
You gotta back up a little bit, you gotta confuse, so the DPI is not going to do what?
No, DPI had sent out, there was, the US Department of Education had sent an email out that if people did not certify, that they were going to immediately lose funding. And DPI sent out today to say that they are not, that process is not going through, that sometimes
Oh,
you
okay.
see, that you see in the news that, you know, this is
So
happening right
they
now.
have been notified.
Yes, they have been notified.
Department that that doesn't happen.
Correct. They
Okay.
said this letter confirms.
Much better than my interpretation.
Yes, Wisconsin's ongoing compliance with federal law while raising serious concerns about the certification. So for right now, based on where things are at, we're okay. The other one, just to kind of, we talked about a little bit, but we're talking more with Richland Center, just exploring that alternative ed option and having some of those discussions to look at some of those avenues with funding and, you know, doing what's best and appropriate for students. And again, just kind of the back end of it, the funding, I think there's a lot up in the air right now with lots of things to know where things are gonna go. And, you know, like Allison said, until we really know, it's hard to, but yeah, it's tough to not look at some of that. And especially like you said, Janet, when you look at, you know, of the top 9 schools for our, right in our area. So we'll see. I mean, there's obviously lots of unknowns, and we go from there. I think, you know, I guess silver lining is where we were projected to be number wise a year or two ago to where we are right now. We're certainly a lot better off than what it would have looked like a year or two ago. So that's what I have from the superintendent aspect. Principal report, we'll have a prairie burn coming up here soon. We're in the middle of state testing for the forward exam, the pre-ACT. The UWL course, which was in the packet to approve for next year, just to get back on that. The reason we still couldn't do the Southwest Tech is the certification. They're still very stuck on the master's element, and so that eliminates some of that flexibility, so we have that element. KGLST, which is Kickapoo Griffin Land Stewardship Team. There will be a day afternoon here coming up on May 2nd where kids can get out. We have some speakers come in to explore the outdoors and discuss that. And tomorrow is statewide tornado drill. So that's what I have. Anybody has any questions?
In the elementary, the testing for forward testing is just about done. I'll catch the kids that missed the test because they were absent. All of the Act 20 testing is done, and I will be sending the last of the letters home maybe tomorrow, with the results. And the money that the board put into the U-Fly training is paying off. There's some really nice growth in the in all grades in K through second, or K through 3, because I'm doing the progress monitoring, so I get to see it. We're gonna have an Earth Day Thursday. Sam Goodwin sets it all up. She has speakers. The kids are she's got an outside stuff, and if it's a rain day, inside stuff. Different things for Earth Day and recycle group. I think some of the kids are gonna walk down. She's got Go Macro in there too. They said they could give the kids a quick tour. Booked for breakfast was good. Thanks for being there. And the summer school is out. We are doing it a little bit different this year. We had more interest from middle school and high school teachers that wanted to do summer school. With the baby explosion in the elementary, it's harder to find people to want to be here in the summer. So we're doing the jump off to preschool and a kindergarten one. And then we're going, 3 teachers are going to do first grade. We'll okay this at whichever board meeting we need it. Or we're gonna put first, second, and third grade together, and 3 teachers are gonna divvy them up. And then 4th and 5th graders and the middle school teachers get to pick. Erica Walter has a class that she started with books and mindfulness, and there's a high school class with art with Megan and Heather, and then Jake Gerke is going to do a fishing class with 4th graders through 8th. Lori Martin, we got back, and she's going to do a kickoff to middle school sea perch thing with the kids, first 12 to sign up. And I think I'm missing one, but we have about 100 kids signed up. The deadline to sign up is Friday, and then I will move the deadline back another week. Remind everybody, and then I will keep moving that back up until the day that summer school actually starts, and we'll probably have about the same amount.
So when is it gonna run this year?
July 9th is I think
think it's the 7th through the 18th.
is it the 7th to the 8th or 9th? Yeah, it's that week, the week after the 4th. That's when everybody, yeah. Because last year it was the 8th, this year it's the 7th. I can remember which way it went.
Is strength and conditioning the whole summer?
Yes, that is, I put it in the booklet, but it's not.
There will be that's just what I wrote down right now. Kent will send something out here soon to the kids for that, because it's typically separate.
And it's in the summer school booklet, so a lot of parents sign them up through that. It's on the last page.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday this year.
For high school, yeah.
High school is
Tuesday,
Monday,
Thursday for
Friday.
middle
It's
school.
Tuesday, Thursday for junior high. Any question?
I didn't see a setup.
It's in there.
Is it?
Would I let you know?
I didn't find a link.
Any questions for Aaron or Andy? Thank you, gentlemen. We will move on then to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, paragraph 1, part C. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which we have jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. Purpose tonight, middle school assistant, track coach, volunteer chaperone for the sea perch trip, a leave of absence, and alternative education. Anybody want to move to?
I'll make motion to convene the closed session.
I'll second that.
Motion by Earl, second by Janet, and we'll have a roll call vote, Marla.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Peggy McCormick,
Yes.
Bo Schrader.
Yes.
Janet Mathis, Scott Walter.
Yes. Everybody need a brief break or should we plow through? Motion by Earl, second by Janet.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, we start again.
Yeah, go ahead, Earl, so it's recorded.
I make a motion that we approve Heather Martin as middle school assistant track coach.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Earl, second by Janet to approve Heather Martin as assistant middle school track coach. All in favor?
Yes,
Aye. Opposed?
Make a motion to approve Evelyn Hazel as a volunteer chaperone for the Street Birch trip.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac to approve Evelyn Hazel as the chaperone. All in favor?
yes,
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Approve the leave of absence for Jenna Hamilton.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Bo to approve Jenna Hamilton's leave of absence request. All in favor?
yes,
Aye. Opposed? And one more?
And approve the alternative education services with this Richmond Center.
Motion by Earl, second by Peggy to approve the alternative educational arrangements. All in favor?
yes.
Aye. Opposed? Then one more motion to be made.
Second.
Motion by Isaac, second by Janet to adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Help with anything?
Or about this, oh, that's down the line.
Guys, thanks. Thanks. Chairman?